Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. This is our Sunday Vibes live show. So make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel and get into the chat and let me know how you guys are feeling on this wonderful Sunday evening. We're about to have a hour and some change long conversation about everything that's unfolded in the Premier League, as well as some Arsenal transfer news, which I know you guys love. So get involved. Before we get started, I just recorded the Wolves post-match podcast with LeGros from the Arsenal Vision, Arsenal Opinion podcast. And yeah, it was a good time. If you guys want to join the Patreon, you guys can for 7 days free. The link is in my description box, or you can just go to patreon.com/SheKnowsArsenal and you guys can join, like I said, for 7 days free before you guys actually commit to the $4 a month for the content. And that's where we do more of a in-depth conversation about what happened around the game and all those types of things. You guys know player ratings is mostly the performances and all that kind of stuff. So let me see who's all in here. Let's go. Let's see. Olu says Palhinha is definitely not a wrong move, 100% the right move. Boy says Palhinha will be decent, but Seiwald is just younger Palhinha, if I'm being honest. Akau says Palhinha will be a suitable replacement for both Partey and Jorginho. As for Douglas Luiz, is another deal being worked on by Edu and his friend Mendes to drop another average Brazilian on the club. Team Tem says he's good, so maybe a good addition. See, Walder says, I'd be behind the move. What is the feed that with Bayern again? Because that's a good indicator. We'll talk about all that. Martin says Paulinho would be a fantastic addition. Martin says Nando's Rice. T01 says Douglas Luiz yellow missed the game against us. Would he miss the game against us because he got a yellow? Because they play Man City first. So yeah, I'll name this account later. Says, hi Jess, how are you? I'm really, really good. I hope you're doing well too. Oma says Paulinho will be awesome addition. Martin says it's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. I love that. Jason says, hi Jess, hope you're enjoying your weekend. I am. Blaze says, hi Jess, how are you doing? I'm great, you guys. I really can't. Like, there's really not that much for me to complain about. You guys know if I will complain, but I have nothing to complain about right now. So we're feeling good. We're feeling great. This red cup does not have alcohol in it. I promise. It's just water with ice. This will have alcohol in it later, but not at the present moment. So this is just water. I promise. I need some ice, you know? Jason Johnson says, hi, Jess. Hope you're enjoying the weekend. Oh, yeah, I read that already. I'll name this account later. Says the Premier League referees are embarrassing at this point after Simon Hooper is on the taker incompetent. So let's talk about that. We're going to jump into the first game, which is probably the one that is freshest on the dome, which is Manchester City 3, Spurs 3. Manchester City dropped points in their third straight game in the Premier League. All three of the games that they dropped points in were against top 6 opposition, and 2 of those were at home. And so in games that they led for long periods of time, I don't want to say that this is a city that's not, looking the same, because listen, they always kick into gear around February, March, and then they go on a crazy run or whatever. But that was like the perfect result for us. I mean, a loss probably it would have been better probably for Manchester City, but a draw just damages Spurs just a little bit, because honestly, I'm not trying to hear all the nonsense about they played their way. Manchester City have nobody else to blame for this this result but themselves. They missed so many wide open opportunities in the first half. Haaland missed a sitter, and Doku also hit the post. Alvarez also hit the post. I thought they were very lackadaisical in the first half and felt like once they got 2-1 up, that Spurs would not come back. But Spurs definitely put them under pressure. And once Grealish scored, I also thought that they were a little complacent, and boom, here you go. You have a 3-3 scoreline, not looking good. Now, I will agree that Simon Hooper was definitely on his corruption tip today, because not letting advantage go when Manchester City were in on goal, to me is very suspect. Why he didn't allow the play to go on, like, that's just like simple refereeing 101. But Everybody is saying that we should just allow the referees to be bad at their job. So what do I know? I thought Pep was really shady to be like in the press conference and he's like, I'm not going to do a Mikel comment. I'm not going to do a Mikel comment. How this is like the third time that you've mentioned us in your press conferences. We didn't play today. You played today. You don't need to be talking about Mikel or Arsenal or anything like that. Talk about why you did not get the 3 points today when you had every opportunity to. Spurs had a terrible defense out there, terrible defense out there, and you guys did not put them away in the first half. Like, you don't need to talk about Mikel. Talk about yourself, you know? But it was a typical City getting done by Spurs, and it works out in our favor. We've won, but at what cost? We're going to have to talk about how Ange is the best thing since sliced bread. But from an Arsenal perspective, as many points as City can drop, the better. Rodri also got a yellow card in this game, which means that he will be suspended for the Aston Villa game. And I think the Aston Villa game is going to be really important for Arsenal, not only because Villa are really good at home and they're going to be playing against a team that we're going directly against in the title, race, but we also get to see potentially how Unai Emery will set up against us because Aston Villa plays City at home first and then they play us at home next. So I'm really interested to see how Unai Emery sets up against Manchester City. I feel like it'll be similar to how they set up against us, but Douglas Luiz potentially missing in that game, Rodri also missing in that game, kind of even things out, I think. But man, we could never, when we dropped points 3 days on 3 games in a row, we didn't hear the end of it. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. TBG says, watching Liverpool, I'm less worried about them, to be honest. They've been conceding chances all season. It will level out. Going to talk about that. Martin says, big up Ange. That was brilliant lunacy. Kevin says, it's a good signing, but I don't want him because he's injury prone. Okay, talking about Palhinha. We'll talk about that too. Boy says, allow the refs. All the rival fans came for Arsenal with all the smoke when the refs couldn't get a single key decision right. See, Walter says City got a bit robbed at the end, but I managed to hold back the tears. I literally do not feel bad for them just because it's like everybody told us the whole point. I swear, as soon as I start doing a stream, somebody always calls me. But yeah, I feel as though I do feel like it's one of those, right? But you don't know 100% if City would have scored in that moment, but you would bet that they probably would have. But these are the same people that were saying that Arsenal shouldn't have been upset because Kovacic should have got that red card. You don't know 100% if that would have changed the game, but you know what I mean? Like, it's when it happens to you, you're all in the referee's face, but when it happens to us, you don't have anything to say, and you're just like, just hold that. You didn't play well enough. You didn't do enough. So I don't really feel sorry for City, to be honest, but what I will say is that, you have to finish your chances. They had so many chances to put that game away, and I do think that in their last 3 games, they've been really complacent when they went up, against Chelsea, against Liverpool, just really complacent when they went up a goal or 2. So, yeah, they have really nobody else to blame but themselves, but hey. Hugo also saying Haaland tears are great. The one thing I'll say about that is I don't want to see Arsenal as the poster boys for, abusing the referees anymore. Lewis Dunk called Anthony Taylor an effing bell end last weekend, but when Sky Sports and The Athletic wrote up articles about the treatment of referees, they both use Arsenal as their cover photo for those articles. And I didn't really understand why, because we have the least amount of yellow cards for dissent, yet and still we're the poster children for the media of bad behavior. Arteta's situation with the referees is different from our players. Our players don't really do anything to the referees. And for Lewis Dunk to sit there and get a red card for dissent, and then the very next day for them to write up articles and put Arsenal on it, next time you write up an article, put Haaland, because he looked like a mad. Let me get the picture. Like, I've never seen an Arsenal player look like Haaland did today. He looked like a freaking lunatic. And I get that he was upset. He even tweeted about it. He retweeted it. The Simon Hooper situation. So they really are upset by it. I get that they feel like they were robbed, but I also kind of feel like they're feeling the pressure a little bit. and things aren't quite going their way the way that they expected them to. So I'm just gonna find the photo real quick. It's like I had it up and then all of a sudden it like disappeared. He looked This should be your freaking cover photo. You guys hold on real quick because I need to show you guys this. I really do. It's so funny. It is so freaking funny. Um, I'm just gonna share my screen. It'll be easier this way. Are you are you are you serious? Hello? Hello, excuse me. This is your cover photo for abusing the refs. Look at his face. Look at it. He is out of control. But they had Odegaard of all people and Fabio Vieira on the cover of these like little articles. Are you for real? Get out. Like look at this. Look at his face. He's straining. He is out of control. Seriously. So yeah, like I think this is funny to me because, everybody acts like we're the ones that are misbehaving and we're really not. But yeah, like City got their just desserts, I think, for not finishing off their chances. Do they deserve, you know, to have the referees not make the right decisions? No, but people only complain when it goes against them. So I'm not about to sit here and advocate for City right now. I'm really not. Dale says that reaction is about missing two absolute sitters. Hello. He also he missed sitters. Like he had that one where it was like, come on now. Hugo says my vessels are about to pop looking at that. Skippy says honey monster. TBG says we've got the least yellow cards this season as well. Exactly. So again, like, and people are like, okay, well, why does it matter? I'm like, because that influences decisions. It's the reason why Granit Xhaka always got red cards, but other people do not. Your reputation precedes you, and if the narrative, because most people are really simple, they don't necessarily do a lot of research on things and see if there's like context or any agenda or anything like that. So what they'll see is consistently Arsenal being connected with poor behavior and abusing refs and things like that, and then that'll manifest itself in Arsenal getting bad calls against them and red cards for doing absolutely nothing. So I think it's well played by the powers that be to make Arsenal look like the villains in every single circumstance. But anybody that's smart enough and uses their brain would probably discern that the team that has the least amount of yellow cards this season and really the least amount of yellows for dissent is probably not the team that's abusing the referees. But there you go. Psalm 51 says Captain Buster Blood Vessel. Let's see. Only is the day says assign quality better players. F. Ismail says 19 yellow cards. Chelsea have 47 yellow cards, 3 red cards. They're really kind of like giving Arsenal like from 2 seasons ago where you have a lot of like immature young players getting yellow cards for like kind of like no reasons and red cards. It's strange to have your captain in 2 games running getting sent off. When we talk about petulance and poor behavior and you know a lack of discipline, that really is not Arsenal, is it? Jordan says Paulinia and Rice in the middle of the pitch, and I heard we are linked to Diamande, the CB as well. I guess Arteta wants to lose 0 goals next season. We'll talk about that. The Arsenal perspective says I can't recall a game this season where I have looked at in disdain in the way Arsenal players have conducted themselves on the pitch. Dale Carragher says Man City not only drew the last 3 matches, they've gone 3 wins, 3 draws, 2 losses in the last 8 Premier League matches. Blaze says Pochettino and Pep, 2 friends who throw Arteta under the bus with comments about referee. Arteta shouldn't be nice with them anymore. You guys know I didn't like when Pochettino did what he did. I thought he really did throw his brother Mikel Arteta under the bus when he decided to suck up to the referees, only to be like suspended from matches that like only like the next game after that. How about you shut up and talk about yourself? How about that? Faye says, Jess, do you think Liverpool are stronger than City this season, at least attacking wise? Well, let's go ahead and get into that. Liverpool beat Fulham 4-3. This was a game where I wish I had not said anything because I was like, Fulham scored that 3rd goal and I was doing the yes, they did it. Yeah. And I should have remembered that they were at Anfield. Anfield definitely took them for a ride. Like, they really did. I mean, it was like, boom, that goal went in from Endo, and then, like, seconds later, Trent Alexander-Arnold, fantastic finish. Um, I think Liverpool have a very exciting attack with a lot of different types of attackers. Like, I would say what our defense is, their attack is. So, like, how we have a bunch of different like attacking tools. Like, we have, if he had been fit, we have Timber and we have Zinchenko, we have Tommy, we have Ben, we have Kivior, we have all these different options. Their options that are like that are in the attacking third. So it's Luis Diaz, it's Jota, it's Salah, it's Gakpo, it's Nunez, it's all these guys, right? So they have abundance of like different types of tools that they can use to unlock, the attack and score goals, and they're really exciting. And one of the things that really stand out to me about Liverpool that I really admire about them is the way that they can turn dangerous situations from opposition in their opposition or like in their box into really dangerous attacks for them. The speed at which they attack is frightening. They can look like they're about to concede and literally be in on goal in the matter of seconds. That's how good Liverpool are from an attacking standpoint. So I do think that attacking wise, they are probably the most exciting attack beyond maybe Newcastle. I would say Newcastle probably score goals at a clip that nobody else really does. And then Liverpool have the types of players that can score a lot of goals. So maybe they are a better attacking outfit than Man City, or, I think Man City will always have that Holland thing. So they can just like kind of kick it up to him and he'll kick it in the back of the net. But Liverpool, from an attacking standpoint, really scared the shit out of me because if Jota's not scoring, they'll take him off and put Luis Diaz on. You always have Nunez running in behind. You have Salah, who's world class. You have a bunch of different things going on at the same time. So their attack really scares me. Where they fail, like where they flatter to deceive, is their defense. We had spoken about it on the top six show like a day ago, that the thing about Liverpool is even though they have a very similar attacking or defensive numbers that we do, like their attack was like very similar to us in terms of numbers. Allison was making a lot of saves and they were actually giving away a lot of chances. So once Allison was no longer in the goal, you kind of saw that like the frailties were really there. To give away 3 goals to Fulham is not something that you can really disregard. You can, say like, okay, well, our attack, it did it. It's fine. But what if they weren't at Anfield? What if they were at a different venue? Would they have been able to come back from that, from 3 goals, that they given up? So I think where Liverpool's strengths really lie is in attack, but the defense is really not as solid as people think it is. I think not having like a legitimate number 6 hurts them. I think Allison doing a lot of heavy lifting back there really hurts them. I don't think the defending that they were doing today, even though they'll say it was all Kelleher, I don't think it was all Kelleher, because how did it get there? So Liverpool, a very exciting attacking outfit. They always have been that under Klopp. So there's nothing really, no notes there. But defensively, especially without Allison, it's looking really sus. Now, they'll probably have Allison for our game, which is unfortunate because if they didn't, I would be like, damn, this might be the first time we're going to go to Anfield and get something. But yeah, without Allison, it's looking a little suspect back there for them. Hugo says Soboslai was awful. It's interesting because, I've been hearing that he's like the best summer signing, but I don't think he's anywhere near the best summer signing. I don't even think he's in the conversation. Um, he hasn't really been that great. I actually think, yeah, I don't think that he's been great. I think as bad as Odegaard's been better than him, so he hasn't really been all that. I think he's a great player, and he'll come good for them and, whatever. But Odegaard is, is clear of him. The Arsenal perspective says, I'd like to hope that Arteta is not bothered by Poch and Pep's comments. How come they don't mention Gary O'Neill? Because they see Mikel as direct threat and a rival with similar and some ambitions. Pep likes to deflect, so when they drew to Chelsea, the first thing that he spoke about in his press conference was how Arsenal were worse than they were at Stamford Bridge. He likes to deflect and make it about other people. We see your tactic, but it's not working. Dale says, I also admire Liverpool's offense, but Arsenal being a bit boring, but in total control of matches ain't looking so bad after watching the Liverpool Man City matches. Do you guys agree with that? I came on here in the player ratings after the game yesterday, and I told you guys that I was nowhere near as upset as some other Arsenal fans were because I actually really enjoyed the game all the way up until Zinchenko's mistake. I know that we wanted to hit them for 6, but who's really hitting teams for 6 in the Premier League? It's really difficult. Liverpool gave up 3 goals at home against Fulham. Man City are giving up 3, 4 goals a game. Um, even like Aston Villa went away to Bournemouth and drew 2-2. So it's not easy to get clean sheets in the Premier League. And I still think we're top of the Premier League clean sheets chart. I may be getting that wrong, but I think we still have the most clean sheets along with maybe one other team. So just because we gave up 1 goal did not mean that that game was close. It really wasn't. Like, I would take the way that our games have been this season rather than last season with every single one of our games was like game of the season. You can have that shit. I don't want that. So I think seeing the Man City, Liverpool games put into perspective, even Chelsea's game against Brighton, which ended up being 3-2 to Chelsea, that yeah, we need to nip out the individual errors, but this idea that like if we don't put 6 past a team and get a clean sheet, that the game was not what it was. The Premier League is just not that easy. And so I think we're doing a really good job. And our game actually looks a lot more routine than people made it seem yesterday. Jason says, you are right, Jess, on what you were saying right now. Michael says, I 100% agree. Out of us, City and Liverpool, we have the best foundation to build on for the rest of the season. And now that we're starting to hit a little bit of form from an attacking standpoint, I can really see Arsenal clicking into that next gear, which we're really going to need in this next period because we have so many big games coming up that are a lot trickier than Burnley and Sheffield at home. A lot trickier than those games. You have West Ham at home, you have Brighton at home, which both of those teams we should be beating, but they're difficult opponents to play against. You also have, Liverpool away and Aston Villa away that are going to be really, really difficult. So we have a game against Luton in a couple of days where we should be putting quite a few past them, if we're honest, and maybe two goals past them, managing the game out, getting out of there, because the next like 4 or 5 weeks is going to be really difficult. Also, we drew Liverpool in the 3rd round of the FA Cup, which we'll have more time to talk about that. But what did I tell you guys when we went out of the Carabao Cup? Now, it didn't really matter because we would have gotten Liverpool anyway. But, I knew we were going to get a difficult draw early because that's just what happens. So we have to play Liverpool more than once, but at least we're going to play them at home, which is great. Hugo says FDJ. What a block on Griezmann. Oh, shit. I forgot the games are on. Hold on, you guys. I just totally I blanked out because I was recording with Pedro and I came straight over here and I forgot about the games. Should I be watching Inter or should I be watching Barcelona? Hurry, tell me quick. Hurry. Tell me quick. Which game should I be watching? Inter versus Napoli or Atletico versus Barcelona? Quick, tell me. Because I'm turning on the television. Barca. Okay. Got a few Barcas in there. Okay, I'm going. Thanks, guys. You guys are really helping me out. I forgot. Because I was frazzled trying to get in between. So just give me 1 second while I turn the game on so I can see it on this side. Oh, it's already 1-0. All right. It's on. We're good to go. Okay, so oh, Felix already scored. So the narrative is narrativing. Okay, so now we need Griezmann to score, don't we? Because they're all both playing against their old teams, right? So the narrative is doing this thing. The one thing I do like about La Liga is I love that camera. That camera is so good. It's like the clearest, like perfect, like camera. I love it. So yeah, Liverpool versus Fulham was a very exciting game where I don't think the result really went in our favor, but we did see some maybe weaker points with Liverpool. We're going to play Liverpool multiple times, so we'll see how that goes for us. I want to touch on this game as well, Newcastle versus Manchester United, and tell you guys some funny shit. So you guys know that like Manchester United have conceded like 200 or something shots. Let me pull that up because like when I tell you that is like so bad, I've never seen anything like this before. I've never seen a team concede so many shots. Like, first of all, I want to know from your guys' perspective, how do you think that game went? Were you surprised that it was only 1-0? Because I actually thought Newcastle probably could have scored like 5, 6 goals against United, and United almost getting a goal at the end would have been so unfair considering Newcastle were the much better side. But the most shots faced in the Premier League this season, Sheffield 266, Luton 241, Manchester United 214. That is insane. 214 shots this season, United. Defensively, they're so bad. They're so bad. And like the whole team is just really bad, really. I mean, watching them was like it was like watching a train wreck, you know? New Maguire, Hugo saying was their best player besides Mano. And the thing is when they get into the period of the season where when Harry Maguire is their best player, you know they're playing really poorly. Man, they're going through it. Justa J says, you know, it's over for a manager when multiple players rebel against you. Colombian Spice says 106 in their last 6 in all comps. You guys, that's like not good. Like, you know, it's like sometimes I think, you know, they always compare everything with Arsenal. And I just think the way that our project is and Arteta and everything, I don't think everybody should stick with their manager. I don't think everybody should trust the process like we have. I think our situation is very unique, just like Klopp is very unique. I don't think that every single manager needs to be trusted in this process. I think it's very strange that Ten Hag, even with his own players, hasn't been able to really implement a style of play. I think it's really strange that he's had to go back to the players that he's like dissed really badly to even just like get some points. I think the fact that he never drops Rashford is actually really weird too. And I love that they've already turned on Amrabat, a player that played half decent against Crystal Palace's cup side. And they actually sat up there and tried to say that he was better than Declan Rice. Now they all want to send that guy back to Italy. I think it's hilarious. So I've never seen like not every single manager needs to be trusted in a process. I don't really think that they can compare what we've done with what they've done. I think some of the things that he's done has been okay, but to not even have the style of play implemented at this stage is weird. Martin N says, to be honest, we are lucky that we have Arteta's experiment works out. If not, we're probably in the same situation that they are. Ron says Arteta took one for these other managers. Pep meant Arteta said it also keeps FA out of trouble. Justa J says they've been poor since last season. The only difference is that Rashford isn't a purple patch form and they don't have a world-class shot stopper. The other thing about the whole, you know, Manchester United thing too is that like everybody told us that like, oh, everybody else is going to get better. And once they get better, you guys are going to fall down the table. But actually, we've also been able to like get better and improve ourselves. I think the team that's actually suffered the most from that is Manchester United because they've been the same this season. In fact, they've gotten a little bit better this season in terms of their results. But everybody else, like Liverpool, has gotten better, Newcastle's better, Aston Villa's better. They actually have suffered the most from teams getting better, not Arsenal, which I felt that was really easy. Jamrock says, Jessica, Arsenal and Newcastle has 6 clean sheets. Man United and Crystal Palace has 5, and Liverpool have 4. So yeah, like I know that we were disappointed about giving away the clean sheet, and it is something that they need to talk about with Zinchenko and say, listen, if you can just be a defender for 5 seconds and kick it out, we would greatly appreciate it because you're killing us, right? But it's not the end of the world, and our game was actually really good yesterday. I think you can kind of add some of that context in there, right? Chadwick says you get new managers in order to inject a new idea, in order to make the team more successful. The difference between new managers, new to managing football, and old ones is the experience. Andrew says United can't even get the basics right. They have no style of play, and I'm loving it. Their players are also don't have great footballing IQ. Some of them have some individual, they almost scored again. Have some individual quality, like you see with like Bruno Fernandez has some individual qualities. Garnacho can come up with like a wonder goal here and there, but they don't really have any brains out there on the pitch. And I know that that sounds really mean to say, but I feel like it's true. I think like one thing that Arteta really values is footballing IQ, where United kind of value who's going to sell shirts, and that's not the way to go about it. Michael says, watching Rashford not track back a single time made me feel grateful for our wingers, especially Martinelli, which also makes me wonder why they have the cheek and the audacity to say anything about Saka and Martinelli when they have the disgrace of Marcus Rashford and Anthony playing for them. How about you focus on yourself? Faye says, do you think we'll win at Anfield and the Etihad? Listen, I think if we play to the best of our ability, we won't lose. I think the formula is always the same. Beat the teams in the top 6 at your place and don't lose away from home. We've already dropped points to Spurs, so we have to make that up somewhere. And maybe that'll be at the Etihad or, at Anfield. Chadwick says, no, don't blame Zinchenko. I think Arsenal defense overall is getting a passing grade. Jordan says, will Defo mop the floor with Liverpool at Anfield because they have no Allison or Matip? I think Allison might be back by then. Even if he's not 100%, he'll be back by their next game, I believe. The Arsenal perspective says Saka and Martinelli should never be mentioned when it comes to the comparisons with Rashford and Martial. The audacity of comparing those two Red Devils to our top gunners. I agree. And Hugo says we will win at the toilet bowl. So yeah, you have to make that up somewhere. Dropping those points at Spurs, it can't go on. We have to beat Liverpool at home. I think beating Man City at home gives us the opportunity to just not lose at the Etihad. So we've done some good, but we've also kicked ourselves in the teeth with that Spurs draw. But it's not the end of the world. So yeah, and last but not least, before we get to the transfer news from Arsenal wanting Palhinha, I do want to just kind of touch on our game a little bit and see if we feel a little bit different about our game, and also a little bit of like an update on Tomiyasu. Tomiyasu is doing some scans, and Arsenal are hoping that it's just a little bit of fatigue and not anything more serious. But if it is, he'll be out for several weeks. And that's a huge blow for Arsenal because he was kind of becoming a lot more important in this team. And we know what he really adds to us is not just what he does on the right-hand side, which has been great, but also giving us a different option on the left. So what happened with Zinchenko yesterday doesn't happen. Being able to take Zinchenko off at the 60th minute has been something that we've used quite well this season. And I think not having Ben White and using Tomiyasu, you have to use Zinchenko more often. And Zinchenko's been playing 90 minutes lately. I think he only played 45 minutes against Lens, but I think he played the whole game against Brentford, and he played the whole game against Wolves. And that's just not something that Zinchenko does every single game. We know that he kind of needs to be managed. And so not having Tomiyasu is a massive blow. It really is. And I'm really hoping that it's not a long-term thing, but it is kind of getting to that point with Tommy where it's like, well, if you can only play 4 or 5 games in a row, we can't really rely upon you. You can't be that important to the team. And I know that some people have been low on Ben White, but Ben White, again, starts to become a more important player because his fitness levels are much better than Tomiyasu's, right? And so I'm hoping that Tomiyasu does not have a long-term injury, but if he does, I do think this is an opportunity for Arteta to start trusting Kiwior a lot more. We have Luton and we have PSV. Those are 2 games that I feel like Kiwior should be playing in because you need to figure out whether or not he can be that option that does the Tommy stuff. I just don't think we can go to Anfield with Zinchenko back there. I don't. I don't think we can go to Aston Villa with Zinchenko over there. So I think that the next couple of games kind of need to be a little bit of a trial for Kiwi to see if he can do the Tommy stuff. Maybe it's not to the same ability because obviously Tommy can play with both feet, but Kivior can do the defensive stuff. And I would just hate to go to Anfield or Villa Park with Zinchenko, knowing that Zinchenko will probably play 90 minutes or so against Brighton. We'll play the 90 minutes against West Ham because those games are at home and will be more dominant. But to go away to those sides with Zinchenko is a little bit of a risk, especially we saw what happened against Chelsea. So big opportunity, hopefully, for Kivior. But man, Tomiyasu, he's so important to the team, but he almost needs to not be because he can't stay fit. It really sucks. Like, I love Tomiyasu so much, but just seeing him go down just kind of like brought it back to earth that, like, oh yeah, this player, he kind of gets injured quite a bit, you know? The Arsenal perspective says it's only 14 matches. There's a lot more drama to come. Only as the day says UCL Cup in our Arteta's hands. CE says just joined. What have I missed? Us making fun of everybody else. That's what you missed. Eho Graham says, hi Jess, I'm watching Boat on BBC. You would love it. What is Boat? I've never heard of it before. Only as the day. By the way, I just saw the trailer for what is it called? Dragons, you know, the new, like, you guys know what it is, right? House of Dragon. I am so gassed for that. And then also like the next installment for like The Ones Who Live. That's like the new what is it called, you guys? The Ones That Live, that's oh my gosh, now I have to think about it. You guys know ever since I had COVID, I've like lost my whole brain. What is it called? What is the original show called? You guys know what I'm talking about. It's the one with all the zombies. The Ones That Live. Hold on. The Ones That Live. The Ones Who Live. The Walking Dead. Sorry. So yeah, the new installment, like the next show or whatever. I'm so excited. So yeah, 2024 TV is back. Okay. TV is back. I cannot wait. The Arsenal perspective says, oh, Tomiyasu, please just be tired and fit. Aegon says, we need another defender. Jordan Davis says, if Tomiyasu can't play, I trust Kivior. Faye, and that's the thing. It's like, I trust Kivior, but does Arteta trust Kivior? Faye says, I'm tired of injured players. Sorry. The Arsenal perspective says, Kivior and White going to be important in these coming weeks. Jordan Davis says, we have Kivior, guys. Let's back him. He has the quality. Chadwick says, Arsenal has been left wanting as far as going forward is concerned based on the facts. The next transfer window is in January, and Arsenal has a number of games before then. So how does Arsenal fix the issue? Well, listen, I get that we have been underwhelming going forward, but I do think the last two games have given us a little bit of hope that it's not that big of an issue. I mean, in the last two games in all competitions, like, we've scored 8 goals. Like, that doesn't really feel like we have like a huge problem. I do think a big key to that was getting like Odegaard back in form. Well, it's no real surprise that once he's playing better, the team is playing better. So I don't necessarily feel like, you know, that's going to be something that we're going to be like super worrying about, right? I think the main issue that we have now is whether or not we have a midfield that feels more balanced. You know, I think that's something that we've spoken about quite a bit. And then also, do we have enough defenders? But in terms of like attack, the last 2 games have been so promising to me that I feel like we're just getting to that next gear. And so hopefully it continues. And I think it will. To me, there's no indication that this team can't score goals. You know, I think we're just going through a lower period where teams were sitting back on us. We were trying to figure out things. You know, some players were out of form, injured, whatever. And we're figuring that out. Saksham says Kivior is good enough to play left back. Michael says, regardless of fitness of Tommy, I want to see Ben White start on Tuesday and Kivior taking the Zinchenko after 60-minute role. Akau says we should be reducing our mistakes. Jorginho giving away our lead against Spurs was painful. We should get Tommy fit. Otherwise, we'd be in trouble against Liverpool. I think we are decreasing our mistakes, though. I think since, you know, we had the big mistakes against Fulham in the first game of this first, second, third game of the season. Then we had the big mistake against Spurs. And then we had the one Zinchenko this time. But actually last season, I do think we had won almost every freaking game. You know, I thought at the beginning of last season, there were shades of individual errors more frequently. You know, you had when we played against West Ham, Douglas Luiz kicks it straight from the corner into the back of the goal. When we played against no, that was against Aston Villa. When we played against Fulham, Gabriel playing around with the ball, and Mitrovic takes it off his toe and kicks into the back of the net. You had the front post shot from Madison against Leicester that's totally avoidable. Also in that same game, Saliba heads it in the back of his own net. I can actually name in the beginning of last season maybe 6 or 7 individual errors that cost us goals, where this season for me it's more like 3, maybe 4. So I do think that we've minimized our individual mistakes. They're still going to happen, but they're not happening anywhere near as frequent. I think we all can say that. Only as the day says Kivior is good in center back. Jason says Tommy is a blow. Let's hope it's not long term. Colombian Spice says Luton away will be a tough game. Sackchamp says play Kiwi and Kiwi White as center back against PSV. We do need to find a way to rest Saliba for a game, so PSV would be a good one. In fact, against PSV, I don't want to see any of our starters really. As many, rotational options as we can get, the better. Andrew says, what do you think about our FA Cup draw against Liverpool? Important or not? It is really important. I don't think we can throw it away. I don't think Liverpool will throw it away either. So I do think it's important. Is it more important than the Premier League or the Champions League? No. But if we go out there with a lineup similar to we did against West Ham, I will be really disappointed because that was one that wasn't important. This one was supposed to be more important, so we need to take it more serious. Only as the day says Santi Jimenez, 87 million worth for Arsenal. Ivan Toney, 100 million pound risk. Signing Osimhen, 120 million waste of money. Saksham says we need another winger forward. We are finished if Saka or Martinelli gets injured. Dale says 4 out of 14 is way more than 6 out of 38. John P says, is Walters in the Champions League squad? Be good to see him at right back. Literally as many rotational options as you can find. I don't care if it's Cedric. I don't care if it's El Neni. The last thing that we need is to put an additional 90 minutes, 60 minutes, 45 minutes, 30 minutes on players that are going to play every 3 days, So that means Ramsdale, get out there. That means Cedric, get out there. El Neni, get out there. Jorginho, get out there. All y'all. Eddie, get out there. All of y'all, do it. Just go. Because we don't need anybody getting injured. Alistair Ben says Palhinha has turned Fulham from a soft, easy team to a very good side. That is hard. That's a hard feat. He will be a very good player for Arsenal. And on that, we're going to go ahead and talk about what you guys all came for, which is Arsenal wanting Palhinha. Now, where is that coming from, right? There was a post from Mo Arsenal 86, I think, where he was talking about Arsenal wanting a number 6. Team News and Ticks reiterated that, saying that we are looking at a number 6, but they don't fit the age profile. So he wasn't sure whether or not we'd go for him. My heart sank because, y'all, I thought they were talking about Calvin Phillips. I really did. I was like, oh no, please, not Calvin Phillips. Please, no. But because Douglas Luiz is not somebody that we're going to go get in January, right? But then Connor from Football Daily actually revealed today that the center, the 6 that we're looking at is Palhinha, which does align with what Team News and Tick said, that the age profile doesn't fit because Palhinha is almost 29. And so there's mixed feelings on this. Palhinha, I do agree with what you guys are saying that, he has made Fulham into a decent side. And he definitely is a Champions League level player that Bayern were really interested in getting in the summer and also still very interested in getting, right? And so he probably would cost somewhere around, 60 million for Bayern, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the same that it would cost for Arsenal, because we all know that when you start asking for money outside of the Premier League, you will always ask for a little bit less because they can't pay for it. But I have a hard time believing that Fulham are going to say, yeah, Arsenal, you can have the same fee or the same price that we're going to give to Bayern. Now, beyond the fee being astronomical, I think that this is the wrong move. And the reason why I feel like it's the wrong move is not because he's not a talented player and not because he's not, wouldn't slot in and make a difference. My problem is that he does a lot of the same stuff that Declan Rice does. And our biggest issue has not been that we don't have a DM that can win the ball back, intercept, defensive quality, make a tackle. We have that in spades, and Declan Rice is superior to Palhinha and 5 years younger. So it's not that we need that. We need somebody that gives us what Xhaka and Thomas Partey had, which was the progressive passing, the progressive carrying. We need that. So Paulinho doesn't add that for us. I don't think. I think his main qualities are a lot of the same qualities that we love about Declan Rice, which is the exact reason why Bayern are going after him now because they couldn't get Declan Rice. It's the exact reason why West Ham wanted him is because they were losing Declan Rice. So why would we bring in somebody that has the exact same qualities as Declan Rice, but on a lower level and 5 years older, than bringing in somebody that actually has the things that we've been missing, which is the progressive carrying and the progressive passing from Granit Xhaka and Thomas Partey. I don't really understand the move. It doesn't really make any sense to me. The only thing I can think of is that Arsenal feel very confident in the left eight options that they have right now. They may feel like, okay, we're getting something out of Kai Havertz, so you don't need another number type of eight. And if we do, we have Fabio Vieira and Emil Smith-Rowe, and then we also have Trossard playing there now. So just get somebody who can step in for Declan Rice. But I do feel like 60 million on a player that does the exact same things as Declan Rice, but at a lower level, feels like a waste of money when you can go out there and get somebody else that actually does different things than Declan Rice, right? Now, if you use your imagination and you have Declan Rice and Paulinho in the same team, that's cute. That's fun. It's you won't get scored on very often, but it does feel like an overload. It really, really does. And everybody has been yelling at me since the beginning of the season that the reason why we don't look as good is because Declan Rice doesn't pass as well as Partey. Then why would you entertain somebody who's a worse passer than Declan Rice? That's my question for you guys. But it's not about him not being a quality player. It's about the profile being all wrong. The reason why I was open to the idea of Douglas Luiz is because he's a progressive passer and carrier. The things that we've been missing from Thomas Partey exist within that player. Paulinho is not going to get the ball and dribble up the pitch. He's not going to find, a line splitting pass. He's not going to do any of those things. Is he going to keep you from getting scored against? Absolutely. But we already have that with one of the best DMs on the planet. So why would we spend 160 million on defense when we all know that we need more progressive passing? What is that? Jordan says Paulinho in the 8 and Rice as the 6. Just can't you see the light? No, I cannot, because Paulinho doesn't play that position now. He's a nailed on number 6. He's even more of a number 6 than Declan Rice. I don't see it. Justa J says, feel like Paulinho is a smokescreen for a move for Zubamendi. Next says Trossard and Havertz at the 8 is not the one. Zahid says Declan Rice is a really good passer and is improving every game. Maybe we should look towards Patino recall. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just looking for the new comment. Sorry. Aegon says, we will need a profile that complements right. We need a progressive 8. I have a name that I want to throw out there, but I want to throw it out there after I hear what you guys have to say about Paulinho. I actually think there's a player that we all probably don't like that much that actually fits this profile a lot better than Paulinho does. Paulinho doesn't fit it at all. As Zahid says, Paulinho has a release clause. I honestly would look towards Kimmich or somebody of that profile. Hugo says, I feel the same way. It feels redundant to me to do this. Like, this doesn't make any sense to me unless we're like, okay, like it just feels he's 29. It would cost 60 million. Like, age isn't everything, but it just feels like an overabundance of a similar profile when we need something a little bit different. So like if Havertz isn't really working, you can do something different than what Havertz gives you, right? It just feels a little strange. Jacob says Zubamendi FDJ profile is what's needed. I kind of agree. We need something different that complements Rice. Samuel says he's going to Bayern anyways. He's almost made the deal last season. The Arsenal perspective, we need to pass specialists in midfield. Jacob says, but I would take Paulinho. Jordan says Paulinho is also very tall and big like Rice. I have the player that I want to mention also is very tall. He's actually taller than Declan Rice. And again, fits this a lot better. The Arsenal perspective says we now have to address replacing Partey. And that's the thing. It's like when you're replacing Thomas Partey, you've already replaced the physicality aspects of what Thomas Partey gave you, but we haven't really replaced the other thing, which is the press resistance, the dip of the shoulder, the progressive carrying, the balls in between the lines. So I just don't really see how Palhinha makes any sense in any way, shape, or form. You know, Jordan Davis says, fed up with Arsenal and these small, diminutive players. We need size. Jordan, we don't even have small players anymore. Like when you look at Arsenal, I don't see small, diminutive. I see like obviously Zinchenko stands out as a small player, maybe Trossard, but really, like we are a massive team. We are a massive team. And I'm sure once we get whatever striker we want in the summer, that team is going to be even bigger. So I actually think we're beyond the idea of like Arsenal's, 2010, Arsenal, which was very small and Barcelona like. We're actually a massive side. Next, it says Trossard and Havertz at the 8 is not the one. I already read that one. Jacob says our only small players, Trossard, even Zinchenko, ain't that short. Justin J. That's the player I was thinking of. That's the player I was thinking of. That's the player I was thinking of, actually. That's the player I was thinking of. And he's not really somebody that I particularly love. But when you're looking for somebody that can carry the ball, you're looking for somebody who's tall, you're looking for somebody that's not going to decrease the size of the team, but is actually more of a midfielder. He plays on the left-hand side. He's left-footed. He's older, but it's not like the end of his career or anything like that. If you want more experience, and he's the player that we wanted to replace Xhaka with initially. I think I would not be surprised if we looked at Rabiot. I would not be surprised. I would not. He fits the profile like a glove, really. I don't like his mom. That's the main thing that I don't like about him. But he's scoring goals right now for Juventus. He's a threat on set pieces, and he's a true midfielder box to box. And I think that's what we need. Somebody who can get the ball and run through the midfield. Somebody who can defend. Somebody who can do all the things in midfield, not a specialist ball-winning CDM. Benicia says Paqueta. I don't think that's happening. Baba Tunde, thank you so much for your super chat, by the way. It says, I think we should go for Paqueta. He has quality, a different type of profile of number 8. I just think that he's going to go to City. When he leaves West Ham, I think he's going to go City. I think we missed that opportunity. But also John P is saying Partey Rabiot swap. It's there, y'all. It's there. It's there. Alistair Ben says he would be good cover for Rice and would mean we wouldn't have to overuse Rice because we will be shit up creek if he's injured. I agree that he can cover for Rice, right? But the thing is how often is that going to happen? Think about how much football Rodri plays for Manchester City. I think we've bought Rice to be pretty much our Rodri. He's going to play 99% of games, and whoever's behind him is going to be just like Calvin Phillips. You're never going to play. You're never going to play. And so to spend 60 million on a player that's rarely going to play and doesn't offer anything different to Declan Rice feels like a waste of money when you can just go out and get somebody else that actually does that job, but can also maybe you can stick them next to somebody else if Declan Rice is not there and probably get a decent result. A cow says Zubamendi is not physically adequate for the EPL, same weaknesses as Vieira. Hugo says everyone is forgetting about Patino. Jacob says can't be serious with Rabiot. Justa J says I'm good. Michael says Rabiot laugh out loud. Crispy says just surely not. I'm just saying who fits the profile. Like it doesn't, if you take the name off and all that kind of stuff and whatever, when you look at who we need, he fits that profile really well. Doesn't make you smaller, progresses the ball, box to box, scores goal threat, does all the defending. He does all the Xhaka shit, but is better than Xhaka at manipulating the ball and doing those types of things. So yeah, I prefer that profile and more box to box than a number 6. But I wouldn't be surprised again if we were looking at him because he's the player that we originally wanted to replace Granit with, So that's all I'm saying. OI says the difference between Rice and Rodri is that Rice is a cleaner tackler. Zahid says, are we linked to Rabiot? Not right now, but we are linked to Palhinha. OI says exactly just Rice is Arsenal's Rodri. Samuel says Rabiot is not a good investment, maybe a loan move. EK says Barella. He's also would be an interesting choice. Only as the day says Pedro Neto, get him. Jordan says whoever cloned Jess return the original, please. Saksham says, isn't Rabiot's contract expiring? I don't know if he signed one or not. Let me check. Y'all, I'm thinking about January. We're talking about January right now. Who can we go get? In January that fits that profile? That's not just a number 6, So yeah, 4 hours ago, it says Juventus forge a plan to maintain the services of Adrian Rabiot. So yeah, like they still have not got him on this new deal. I could have sworn that this has been on the cards for a long time. So I'm really surprised that he hasn't signed one yet. His contract actually expires this summer. Yeah, it expires this summer. And the date of last contract was actually, so he signed an extension, I think, but it was only like a year extension. So yeah, he would actually be free this summer. I'm just saying. Only as the day says Santiago Jimenez from Feyenoord as a striker. Next it says his mom will punch Arteta. It's funny. Aegon says Fofana from Monaco. Saksham says bring back Iwobi. Crispy says he better be on the cheap. I mean, he would be cheap. And I'm thinking about they want Partey. Rabiot could come the other way. That's all I'm saying. Michael says, if Rabiot is cheap, I'm actually not mad at it. And I'm talking about in January. In the summer, you have better options. But in January, if we're thinking, okay, we need to make the most out of this window. We need a midfielder that offers something different than Declan. Who are we going to go get? He wouldn't be the worst option. I do like Fofana better. I see Fofana in the chat. My only thing about Fofana is I'm not sure that Monaco would give us him if we couldn't give him something back, because that would weaken them significantly, and they're kind of like in and around the top 4 of League One, I think. So let me look at that real quick. Let's see. Yeah, they're in 3rd. So what's the likelihood of them giving us one of their best midfielders? What do you guys think about that? They just won their most recent game. Let's see who's out there. Is he injured? Because he didn't play. Maybe he's injured. I don't know. Psalm says Quentin Timber, just for the vibes. Jordan says our standards are in the mud. I don't know. Is Rabiot really like that bad? Like, or is it just he doesn't have a name that is hyped up enough? I don't know. I don't necessarily believe that he's as bad as people make him out to seem. I think people don't like the optics around him because of his attitude with his mom and all that type of stuff. But this is somebody who actively starts for the French national team. How bummy could he be? So yeah, Andrew says Jess is one of the most passionate and knowledgeable Arsenal fans on YouTube. She also knows what else is going on in football. Big her up. Thank you so much. And she is, of course, stunningly beautiful. You're so nice. Thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate that. Chris says, in the summer, we need a CM like Barella or Coop Miners. Yeah, if we don't get somebody in January, like obviously the options become a lot bigger. And then so you can look at different types of players. But I think no matter what, even in the summer, I'm not really going to want another number 6. That's just a number 6. Like a 6/8 would probably be a better option for Arsenal to make sure that we have multiple profiles, but that's just me. And I don't think we necessarily need any more kids either. Like I'm not that wedded to the idea that everybody that we bring in has to be young, but if they're going to be older, they can't be 60 something million. They can't. Like like Paulinia in January for 16 million at 29 years old does not feel like a good sort like it doesn't feel like a good way to use your resources when Declan Rice is going to play that position mostly and they're so similar, but somebody that costs 20 to 30 million that's 28 that does different things than Declan Rice but also can play more defensively and stuff like that, a more 6/8 feels like a better use of your resources, if that makes sense. So yeah, once you get to the summer you're going to think about different things, but I just don't think Pauline is the right move in any way. I don't think we should just add good players for the sake of it. I think they still have to fit and they have to add something different or be better than the player that they're coming in. It doesn't make sense to me to bring in the same type of player. Zach Shamsing says, I think Ward Prowse would have cooked as an 8 in our team. Jessica J says, United made the mistake of paying 70 more million for a declining midfielder. Mike says, get Fofana from Monaco. He can play 8 or 6. Alistair Ben says, Barella is not to come to Arsenal. Italians don't like moving out of Italy unless the feds are chasing them. Tonali. Only as the day says, apparently Arsenal are targeting Ruiz from PSG. Oh my God. We went for Fabian before. Didn't we already go for Fabian before? That was like a transfer from like 4 years ago. Was it not? I wanted him back then. I don't want him now. But that profile is much better though. Um, that profile to me is much more useful to Arsenal than the 6 profile. So I like Fabian, but I also feel like, ew, you went to PSG? Not cute. Let's see. Nexus says De Jong is the chosen one. He's just never gonna leave Barcelona though, is he? I don't think he's really gonna leave there unless they're like, even when they were like low key trying to get him out, he wouldn't leave. They owe him a lot of money too from like back wages and shit. So in order to get him out, they'd have to pay him to leave basically. And I'm not sure that that's gonna happen. Benicia says Andre would be cheap. No, the thing about Andre is he's pretty much already like set to go to Fulham to replace Palhinha. So if Palhinha does leave in January, then Andre would probably end up at Fulham, which I think kind of says maybe a little bit about what his level might be. We spoke about like Danilo before, who ended up at Nottingham Forest, good player, still developing, probably would not have been the right choice to come straight into Arsenal. So you probably need like a year or two in the Premier League. So yeah, he would be cheap, but the fact that he's probably going to end up at a Fulham and not a Liverpool at Arsenal, I think speaks to a little bit about where his level is. Account says Rabiot is equally out of our age range and the issue of his agent mother. Like I said, Rabiot, the ideal thing about him is that he would be a more affordable, like price wise type of thing. He's 28, but again, like there's multiple things against Paulinia. Paulinia does the exact same things as Declan Rice at a lower level. He's 29 and he would cost 60 million. Rabiot does different things to Declan Rice. He's 28 and you know what I mean? Like he would cost a lot less. So yeah, I think there's differences there, big differences. Justice J says FDJ, Locatelli, that's what Arsenal need. Something like that. Aegon says Paquetá would be the chosen one, Jess. Just don't see it happening. We got Kai Havertz now. I just don't really see that happening anymore. I think we missed that opportunity, if I'm honest. Philip says Jeremy Frimpong is my preferred signing in January. For what reason? Right back, right wing, played left back and left wing under Arteta at City would be amazing combining with Saka against low blocks, 22 amazing form. I don't know. I don't know if I'm that interested in that player. He looks interesting. Everybody at Bayer Leverkusen looks like a good player right now, but I hear you. I hear you. I thought Griezmann had scored. Chris says, still upset we did not get Kudus. Jordan says Kudus isn't looking that good at West Ham. I don't know. He did score today. Samuel says Paulinia move is Liverpool written all over it. That's who really needs him. I said from the beginning that he is the Fabinho replacement. I don't know why they didn't just go get him in the summer. He is Fabinho to the T, even to the but like Fabinho was not a good ball playing DM, but like when we talk about eating up, like attacks, he could do that. And so I don't know why they didn't just go ahead and get him, you know. Maybe he does go there because I think Liverpool also will get a number 6 or some sort of DM in January, you know. Let's see, Jordan Davis says, "What is it with us and these Italians? They don't want to come to England." Saksham says, Pocatello is slower than Jorginho. Don't cry when we get run over. Who is that? Who's Pocatello? Justin J says, apparently Liverpool want Douglas Luiz. That's interesting. Michael says, unpopular opinion. I'm glad that Arsenal are looking at center backs this winter. It's the position we're the lightest in my opinion. We are a Gabriel or Saliba injury away from absolute catastrophe. Arsenal already know that they can't rely upon Tomiyasu, and I think that's why they want a center back, is because they like there's a reason why they took Tomiyasu off against Alonso, is because they probably knew this injury was in the post. So they already know that they can't rely upon Zinchenko because he's always injured, and they're really managing his minutes right now. They know they can't rely upon Tommy. They're probably also watching Ben White deal with some injury issues. And so they're thinking to themselves, what actually hurt us last season? Was it that we couldn't score goals? Or was it that our defense collapsed after not having certain players in it? Arsenal will probably end up getting a center back. And I would not mind it if it is the right player. And that is Ousmane Diomande. Go get him. If we ended up spending 50 million on him, I would not bat an eyelid. I would sell Ramsdale to Newcastle or Wolves or wherever to get the money to buy this guy. I don't want anybody else in the Premier League to have him because they would have the new Saliba. Don't want that. Don't want that. And him and Gabriel and Saliba, you would have proper rotation back there. You'd also have another center back, which we do not have. If something were to happen to Saliba, we wouldn't be able to build up the same. It just wouldn't work. Like we could probably make it through some games, but the last thing you want is to go through the run in without your best center back. You just don't want it. So I would, as much as I want a midfielder, you know, that center back, that other center back has to happen because Tomiyasu is not fit. He's not going to be able to make it. If he's going to break down every 5 games, we can't rely upon him. No Timber. Zinchenko is always an injury away. It's right there, you guys. We're kind of right there on the line. I can see why Mikel said what he said the other day about us being very thin, because Tomiyasu's injury, he probably knew it was right there. Only as the day says West Ham won't sell James Ward-Prowse to Arsenal. Forget it. I wouldn't want him anyway. AK says thought he had a 70 million release clause. Yeah, but you can always negotiate outside the release clause if they're willing to sell him. So you don't always have to just everybody, like a lot of players have release clauses, but you can, negotiate around it. Let's see. Dale says, would the new Saliba want to move to Arsenal? Why not? London, top of the league, could win a title this season, Champions League. You get to rotate with Saliba and Gabriel. And I do think somebody will leave this summer from our defensive group. And that's what I think. I don't know who it'll be, but somebody will leave from our defensive group. So there'll be more minutes to be had. So yeah, Aegon says Diomande is the next Saliba. Next it says Beast. Arsenal Perspective says, ooh, good take there, Diomande. It's just weaken everybody else by them not being able to get him, strengthen us by stockpiling on the best center backs that you could possibly have. You have Gabriel there, you have Saliba there, you have Diomande there, and then you have Zinchenko, Tommy, and you have Ben White, Timber. It doesn't really get that much better than that, So that's kind of what I'm thinking. But I don't really think our defensive cover is as good as some people think it is. I think we don't think defense is exciting, so we want to see attackers come in, but ultimately, like, we know if we don't have the right defense back there, we can't even build up properly. Like, it's just not the same. Remember how it was first couple of games when we played with Ben White and Saliba back there because Arteta was doing something weird with Gabriel? I didn't love that. I didn't love it. I don't think anybody loved it. And that's kind of what we're looking at if something were to happen to one of our center backs. It just can't happen. Right now, for all intents and purposes, Ben White is a fullback for Arsenal. So is Tomiyasu. So I think when you take that into consideration and no Timber, you gotta get a center back. You need to get a center back. Chris says, let's be honest. We need a center back and a fullback. Our defensive cover terrifies me. Jordan says, should we sell Tomiyasu to Bayern to fund transfers in January? Selling that Tomiyasu isn't reliable for full seasons. You know, it's an interesting one. I was just talking to Pedro about this, and he was saying that he was kind of questioning giving, Tomiyasu this new contract because you'll have him until he's 29, but he can't play more than like 5 games in a row. And I was thinking about that too. I was like, damn, how it's like that's so unfortunate to be in contract negotiations and then kind of have like this thing that like confirms that you can't be trusted. And so it's been the case that Tomiyasu's been pretty much injured the entire time he's been at Arsenal, which really sucks. It really does because he's such a top quality player. But it kind of is like, well, Emil's a top young player, but he's never there. Thomas Partey is kind of always injured. He's good quality, but he's never there. So just because I like Tommy, I'm going to keep that same energy. I do think that it makes it he becomes less of a fixture for me in the team in my head when I know that we can't rely upon him. So, I think he'll still get his new deal, but getting a new deal doesn't even really mean that you'll stay forever. We could still give him a new deal and sell him in the summer. I don't know if I'm quite there. Like if he were to come back and be able to stay fit the entire season, maybe, but look, he's been having these same kind of like thigh kind of like injuries every season. Like he haven't had him at Bologna, so this is kind of who he is. So, I think if it becomes the case that he can't maintain his fitness, I think some people would be a little bit more open to selling him to Bayern. Um, but I'm not sure I'm there. But I do think somebody within this group will leave this summer, and I think it's not Ben White, it's not Saliba, it's not Gabriel, and it's not Zinchenko, and it's not Timber. So who does that leave? You guys know who I'm talking about. Saksham says Ramsdale is Saliba's backup. Arteta is on to something. Matt Quest has a question. What do you see Timber's role being once he returns from injury? Who does he replace in the first 11? I mean, I think he'll give a hard time to Zinchenko or Ben White. I think the first time he ever played for us, he played right back against like Manchester United in preseason. But then as preseason went on, he started playing more left back. So he's an option on both sides. I think he'll give either one of those players a run for their money. I think my first kind of like feeling is it's probably Zinchenko, but equally, I can see a world where Zinchenko's on one side and Timber's on the other. So we'll see. I think the problem that you have is that Arteta probably doesn't view Gabriel as a left back. So when you invert from the other side, it has to be somebody else over there. It's if you have Timber over there and then Saliba moves over, you kind of have to shift some things around. That's where the other center back becomes important too. So yeah, he'll probably do both sides. Zinchenko probably feels like the most gettable, but I also think Ben White probably, if Tommy doesn't get injured, he's out of the team for a couple more weeks, so either one, but I love Timber. I think he's going to take us to the next level. I told you guys over the break, I had rewatched the Community Shield. Every time I do that, it comes up like that. So funny. Every time, like when I was watching the Community Shield back, it's on YouTube. If you guys want to watch it, you guys can just watch it there. But this is him not even like fully adapted to Arsenal. He was phenomenal. And the thing that he brought is like the ability to carry the ball and manipulate the ball from a dribbling position, which is something that Zinchenko cannot do. But he's just also like a good defender. Like the amount of times that he stopped Bernardo Silva, he stopped Alvarez, he stopped these players from going beyond him, made the block. If we're good defensively now, just imagine what it'll be like with him in the team. So maybe I could see, Tommy on the right, Timber on the left, our two center backs. I can see Ben White over there. I can see Timber on the right. I can see him doing a lot of things, but I'm so excited for him to come back. I just want him to hopefully come back the way that he was before. Like watching Livermento play, watching Wirtz play. These are two young players that have come back from ACLs and look like their old selves. And so that gives me hope that also Timber will. But let's see. Next, it says he sticks to his attacker. He gives no space. A cow says Diamande is better than Tadibo and Tapsoba. OI says, let's remember that Tommy will be going to the Asian Cup, so Ben White not playing right now will serve to benefit Arsenal in the long run. A cow says, if Partey comes back and plays well, we should forget about Arteta selling him. Jordan Davis says, Jess, what do you think about Tadibo as center back option to buy? I prefer Diamande. I think Tadebo's okay. He's a good player. I forgot Depay was even at Atletico Madrid. I forgot he was even there. And it took until that moment to see him that I forgot that he actually played for Barcelona before too. Interesting. I forgot that man existed. Sorry to this man. Never seen him before. But yeah, just what do you think? Yeah, Tadibo for me, he's good, but I prefer Diamande. I think on the ball, he just looks the business. But a lot of people really rate Tadibo. I think he ends up at Manchester United though, because of like the obvious links from Nice to United now with their new investor. So yeah, Chris says, R.I.P. Depay. Saksham says Depay was different gravy at Lyon. Yeah, he was. The Arsenal perspective says Timber was great for us preseason. I was fortunate to watch him against Forest, and he was solid. I hope we ease him back. I was there too, and I like the minute he went down. I think we all knew what was going on with that. But such a fantastic player. Like he's not even tall, but he doesn't get played like a short player, if that makes sense, especially not um on the flanks. So yeah, really rate him. Saksham says we have enough quality options in the center back market. Michael says if Timber comes back half of the player he was in preseason, I'll still be hype. Justa J says Timber's ability to carry the ball into central areas is what we lack. Jason Johnson says, Jess, it's been lovely listening to you. Love your knowledge on football. Love you, Jess. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoyed the show. Sahid says, Jess, Kevin Danso is a really good option for us. Danso from Lons, right? Yeah, he was really good against us in the first round, first game away from home. But there's definitely like for me, like a clear list. Like I think Diamande just has to be the number one that you go for. Arsenal have already been chasing him. I think they understand that like with him, you could play Saliba and Diamande together and lose nothing. You could play Gabriel and Diamande together and lose nothing. And I don't think you necessarily get that with very many other players. Then you have like the Tadibos and the Tepsobas and the Gahis and these guys that, yeah, they're good options, but I just have a feeling that Diamande is just like a little bit more inevitable. Like that's the inevitable world-class player there. But Danso would also be somewhere in there, but definitely not somebody that I would look at above Diamande. When he inevitably goes somewhere else, I will have to do, probably like a day of mourning because I really like that player a lot. A cow says Cedric, Elneny, and Jorginho should be leaving. Arteta shouldn't be extending Jorginho's contract like he did for Elneny. Listen, the thing is, I know Arteta really likes Jorginho, and he's been really cool for us and has done a decent job, but he needs to go, and we need to get freaking serious. Like, we don't need to extend him, not for vibes, not for anything, not because you've always wanted him. You just need to move on. You need to go ahead and bring in you need to figure out how you're going to maximize the spot that Partey and Jorginho leave. Like those two players will probably leave. There needs to be a big center midfield purchase that comes in that changes everything for Arsenal, like another transformative midfield signing, in my opinion. And then you also probably need to condense Fabio Vieira and Emile Smith-Rowe and figure out if you can bring in somebody that really makes a difference there, if you don't trust either one of them. But keeping players around just for the sake of keeping players around or because they give good vibes, for me, doesn't really make sense. I think Jorginho has done good for a stopgap, but I would let him go in the summer and buy a really top quality number 8 slash 6/8. If we don't do it in this January window, do it in the summer and make it count. We have Havertz, who looks like he's coming to his own. Whatever Project Havertz is still going. You have Odegaard, fantastic, and you have Rice. If you can add another 6/8 that is in probably like just about peak years or something like that, that really changes the trajectory, plus a striker, we're good. But to keep Jorginho around just for the sake of vibes, I wouldn't do it. That's not what I would do. I feel like it's a waste. Good player, but I think we're beyond that now. Saksham says Tamori is a bozo merchant. Mancube of North says, what players would you go for from the teams dropping down to the Europa League? What players would you go to? Dropping down to the Europa League. I don't even know who's dropping down to the Europa League. If I'm honest with you, I haven't been paying attention to the teams that are going to drop. But like right now, if I had to choose like our next 3 signings from each line, would be any old person as a number 2 goalkeeper that can play from the back. Diamande as a center back. Midfield, not 100% sold on anybody. But a striker, I would go for Osimhen. If he says you have a 10% chance of getting me, that's who I would spend the majority of my summer trying to convince to come. Diamande, Osimhen, and then some 6/8. Not quite sure who that is just yet, but that's what I would go after. That's what I would do. Yeah, we need a signing almost on every single line. And I would like to up the physicality, speed, aggression of this team a little bit more. I actually have no problem being like, expensive Stoke in some ways. Like, I think sometimes it's just okay to kick the ball long, hold it up, knock it out to somebody else and put it in the back of the net. I have no problem with that, if I'm honest with you. But yeah, like fast, physical, clinical striker, center back that's like Gabriel and Saliba in a 6/8. That's what I would go for. Next 3 signings for me. Arsenal perspective says we need to be ruthless as a club on the pitch and off the pitch. I agree. Andrew says if I was Arteta, I would sell Zinchenko, Tommy, Jorginho, Vieira, Eddie, Ramsdale, and ESR by the summer and bring in 4 top quality replacements. Samuel says, is ESR out for the season? No, he'll probably be back within the next couple of weeks. The thing about Osimhen being injury prone or whatever is that you will take a player with some injuries and manage them if they're going to change the trajectory of your club, similarly to the way that Manchester City have managed Haaland. Haaland had plenty of injuries at Dortmund, but he's worth it, and if you just need to manage the player properly. So I think Osimhen is worth a couple of injuries, because when you put him in there in the Champions League, he's just going to score the goals. I just think that's where we're kind of at. If we're going to spend 100 million on a striker, I want it to be somebody that's going to take us to another stratosphere, not somebody that's going to keep us treading water in the same place that we're at. So yeah. Let's see. Saksham says Elneny, the GOAT. The Arsenal perspective says keeping players for the vibes is so banter era. We're past that. I agree. I don't think we need to keep them around anymore. Akal says Elneny transitioning to coach who? He's had enough money sitting on the bench laughing. He should find another club this summer. He's created his own club. So I think, it's like Elneny FC. He's going to move on this summer. I'm not really worried about Elneny or Cedric. I'm worried about Arteta renewing Jorginho and not going after the center midfielder that we need to. Now, that doesn't mean if you keep Jorginho that player doesn't come in, but I just don't even want it to be an option. Somebody is saying a right winger. I just don't think we're going to bring in 4 or 5 players this summer. I really don't. I think maximum 2 if we're lucky, because those players are going to be more expensive. So if I have to say, like, what's more important, replacing Jesus or making sure Jesus and Nketiah or making sure that Saka has backup, I think replacing Jesus. and Nketiah is more important than backup for Saka, a player that's probably going to play 99% of games all season. That's what I would say. I just think we need a clinical striker to take us to that next level so we can win the Champions League. Boy says a lot of fans faves have to be sold. Partey, ESR, and Kedia, Jorginho, El Neni, and honestly Kivior. Sakshem says we can get Indika as a center back for cheap. Um, the Arsenal perspective says, okay, I hope the right winger is coming from the academy then. Listen, I think you're always going to be missing something in your team. I think it's very rare that anybody has every single position that they want filled. I think once you fill one position, another one becomes something that you need to look at. That's why every single year you're buying something. So I don't think we'll get all of the things that we want. I think everybody wants like a right winger, a striker, another number 10, another DM, a couple of fullbacks and a center back and a new goalkeeper. I think, we can all look at different things that we probably need to look at some stage. But when we talk about priorities, and the fact that we're in the season of probably only getting one or two signings is a summer, yeah, I think I would forego a right winger that would probably be sitting on the bench more often than not and prioritize the player that's going to be starting, especially when Jesus is going to be there to cover wings and you have Trossard there too. You can make it work. Boy says Fabio Vieira, another one that must be sold. I think he really shot himself in the foot not getting that red card, and then obviously now he has the injury that's going to keep him out until January. By that time, Trossard will have really cemented himself in that left 8 position. I think Trossard has actually looked really good there, and it's only his second time playing there. He's only going to get better from here. And so you have Havertz and you have Trossard, you have ESR that's going to come back before you, and then you're going to come back in January and need more time to adapt and all that kind of stuff. And it's just, I really think Fabio Vieira is a really good player, and I wish that he could have adapted quicker. But getting that red card really kind of like put a bad taste in my mouth. I thought, I know that it's not like you tried to hurt the player, but in a time where we need you, you're not here. So I can't advocate for you getting more playing time if you're not around. So, and he's injured. He's been injured quite a bit at Arsenal. I think he missed almost all of preseason injured, right? So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but some players are just not going to make it because Arsenal have gone to another level. And you need players that are going to force themselves into the team and be aggressive. I think Trossard and Tomiyasu are aggressive in trying to get into the team. When they have an opportunity, they really make it count. And I think Fabio Vieira and Kivior can be a little timid and a little, okay, like I'm here, but am I really knocking on the door for extra playing time? Am I really and so it's tough. It's tough. I really like Fabio Vieira. Maybe he makes a difference in the second half of the season. Saida says, Jess, would you rather keep Jorginho or Partey? I love Partey, but his lack of availability makes it almost a waste of time having him in the squad. Jorginho has been good in big games for us. As unpopular as this would probably be, I'd prefer to keep Jorginho because I know he'd be available. I just feel like, Thomas Partey's missed almost half of the season now. And that's just not, and I don't have a lot of hope for him being fit in the second half of the season because I know once he gets into the injury cycle, it's 5 games here, 7, 8, 9 games off, So I think Jorginho being here is better, especially because I think he's played well for us. But I want both of them probably to go and for us to really bring in a top quality midfielder. That's what I want. That's what I'd prefer. Boy says the thing is Trossard doesn't hide even when his touches aren't coming off. Fabio Vieira does from what I've seen. Saksham says Vieira has been nothing but a waste of money. Let's see. Boy says the most I'll go is to keep one of ESR or Fabio Vieira. Would rather keep ESR personally. And that may be where we're at too, is like maybe because you still have to have a squad, right? So it may not be the case that you get rid of, maybe you don't get rid of ESR, Fabio Vieira, and Thomas Partey and Jorginho. That's a lot of players to get rid of in one go. It's a lot. But I guess one thing you could think of is like, okay, if you're going to sell Ramsdale, maybe you sell ESR, Maybe you sell Nketiah. There's a couple of different players that you could sell in there that give you some money. Maybe, because after this year, Thomas Partey will have one more year left on his deal. You could just keep him for another year maybe and let him run his deal down. It's not ideal, but, if you let Jorginho go on a free, maybe you let Thomas Partey go on a free the year after. I don't know. Maybe you only sell ESR and you keep Fabio Vieira for depth. I don't know. So I think it's unlikely that we'll get rid of all four, but you have to make some decisions. I think two or three of them have to go. So Arsenal have to figure out which ones they want to keep and which ones they want to let go. Cal says Jorginho is not a DM, but rather a holding midfielder who circulates the ball and lacks the pace, physicality, and the breaking passing that Partey is excellent in. Aegon says Eddie 40 million, Ramsdale 50 million, Partey 20. Andrew says that's what I've been saying. Get the money in by selling the players I mentioned, which was 7, and we will have money to strengthen in 4 quality players, leaving room for the youngsters also. Yeah, I think they just need to figure out which players they want to keep and which ones they don't. Who do they think still has a future? It's so hard because a lot of the players that we're talking about are players that are constantly injured. ESR, Fabio Vieira, and Partey are always injured, so it's almost like they make it more difficult on themselves, unfortunately, because they're never there. So it's hard to really gauge whether or not they're going to be able to make an impact because they're not there. But I think, when you look at the group, you can see like 4 or 5 players that you can look at and maybe sell 3 of them and get something, but you're not gonna be able to get rid of everybody. And you shouldn't get rid of everybody. It should be a slow kind of like moving players on. But I think I'm feeling almost that both Jorginho and Partey need to go in order to bring in somebody with some real quality. Ooh, goal. Oh, how did he not score? Lewandowski, bum. Boy says, would rather have both Partey and Jorginho leave, hold on to El Neni and sign one replacement and a promotion from the academy on top of it. Yeah, you have to think about Patino as well. Like, do you actually want him to be in the team or not? Because in order for him to be there, I do think you'd have to get rid of Partey and Jorginho. That opens up a spot for him, lower down the pecking order, and then also, buy somebody else. So a lot of big decisions to be made in the next couple of windows, in the January and the summer window. There's a big opportunity for Arsenal to go even further. Got to get that striker in. Got to get that big midfield signing in next to Declan Rice. I think Havertz will be fine, but you still have to have somebody else that does different things. Big decisions ahead. Big decisions ahead. And I was watching the end of Barcelona and Atletico Madrid. And for the last maybe 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, if you guys want to throw some questions out there, we'll wrap up this 2-hour stream with some questions. And then, like I said, you guys, there will be a post-match podcast on Patreon with LeGrove from Arsenal Opinion that comes out tomorrow on Monday. And you'll also get your Monday bit of content too. So don't worry, for people that are not patrons, you will still get a little bit of content from me tomorrow. Saida says at some point Arteta needs to incorporate some academy players. Are you saying there wasn't anyone in the academy better than Sambi or Tavares? Listen, that's a whole nother conversation. A whole nother conversation. How important is it for Mikel Arteta to incorporate the academy? Is it like 100% you have to do it? Because I've seen some people say if he doesn't get Noweri, MLS, or Patino in the team, then he should go. I've seen it's that desperate for some people. I don't know if I necessarily feel that way, but it is strange that he's given debuts but hasn't integrated anybody in. And I would love to see him move the likes of Jorginho and Cedric and Elneny on and use some of our academy to fill those squad positions. I think it's so much more cost effective because then you don't buy a bum to be a squad player, but then you also get to increase the value of players in the academy because not all of them are going to make it. Probably out of like MLS, Noweri, Patino, all these people, only like maybe one of them will make it. So they serve the first team in several different ways. Sometimes it's a squad role, sometimes it's to be in the team like Saka, and others are sold for profit, and they're pure profit, which is amazing, which is why selling Nketiah is going to be great because he's going to be pure profit. It didn't cost us anything really, right? Because we didn't have to buy him. So I do think that like ESR will be the same thing. So I do think that like if he doesn't get one of them in the team soon, it will look a little crazy because you have these older guys going away, and we really don't need to be buying players to be squad players when you have such a great academy. So I don't know how important it is to me. I don't think it's as important to me as it is to other people. But I do think it's a little strange that he hasn't tried to integrate anybody in. But I also think it's a little bit over the top that some people were like they had to come in that Champions League game. I don't necessarily feel that strongly either. Boy says I will entertain a swap deal with Brentford. They can take Fabio Vieira and Nketiah. We will take Tony. I don't even want Tony, but it's good business. I'll name this account later. Says Jessica, do you watch the NFL or basketball? Only if it's like on, but really football is on almost 24/7, 365. So there's always something on for me to watch, whether it's the MLS or NCAA, college, women's, international, something. So pretty much my days are filled up with football. And if I'm not watching football, then I'm probably watching something else to rid my mind of sport. So I don't really spend a lot of time watching other sports. So unless it's just like on, I really don't partake. I got too much other stuff going on in my head. John P says the academy players need good loans first for me and get them their value up and have a good look at them against adults. The Arsenal perspective says, I would watch NFL, but my team are the Giants. If you know, you know. Michael says, to be fair, who in the academy has really been good enough for the squad? We have a big squad that want minutes, and we seem to do bad in cups anyway. Yeah, I think yeah, you see other academy players from other teams getting integrated into their teams, and I think that makes Arsenal fans feel like, well, why not Nweri? But we're not in the same situation as them. Newcastle and Man United riddled with injuries, plus, Manchester United's senior players are not very good, so they're having to like dig into the academy, which is what we had to do when we were not really that good. Arsenal are much better now, so it's the level, the line to get in and really be integrated is so much higher. So even just getting on the bench is probably a good thing, and they have to wait their turn. But I don't even know if there's that much space for them to be like legitimate members of the squad. Because like you guys are saying, there's already players that aren't getting any playing time. Kivior not getting no playing time. Fabio Vieira barely gets any playing time. ESR wasn't getting no playing time. So it's tough to see why we push them into the team. I think next season is where I will look at it a lot closer, just because we know some of these other guys that are making the team won't be there anymore. El Neni, Cedric, probably Jorginho as well. With all of those guys leaving, there should be some spaces, and we should not be filling them with bums. We really shouldn't. You know, so yeah, Philip says, Jess, do you think Diamande would be satisfied with the backup behind Saliba? It would be perfect for Arsenal, but not 100% sure he'd be as keen with playing time. Listen, if I think where this becomes important is being competitive in every single competition that you're in. If there's an opportunity for them to play in cups and also to fill in some Premier League games, but you can win and you're going to go further in those competitions, I think people are more likely to be okay with sitting on your bench. But with Arsenal, we're in that in between space where we're not really taking cup serious, and we don't have a long track record in Europe. So like recently. So I think it would be kind of difficult, but if we're already courting him and trying to bring him in, we probably already know that he'd be interested in coming. It's not like he's guaranteed starting position at Chelsea. He's not guaranteed a starting position. He's probably only guaranteed a starting position at Newcastle, you know, and so that's probably like our biggest competition for him. But Arteta can convince anybody to come, so tell him he's going to get playing time, tell him that, he can really like, compete, because I think he could. And that would make, you don't have to have, the reason why Saliba and Gabriel have to play with each other all the time is because you can't get that same balance with anybody else. He tried Ben White and Saliba together. It doesn't feel right. You've seen Gabriel and Kivior together. It doesn't really feel right. But I do feel like if you get somebody like Diamande in there, you can actually split the time between three, you know? And that would really help us out, especially with Saliba's back injury, But Arteta needs to just convince him, you know? John P says, will you judge Edu if he doesn't get good money for sales now? We have sellable players we need to sell now, especially for FFP. Yes, I've been judging him already. Um, I do think that we accept anything like, oh, well, are they about to score? No. And that's never a penalty. Get up. Yeah, so I've been judging him already. I think some Arsenal fans are just like, well, those players aren't any good. But I think, you build up a reputation in the market and we have to start getting good money for our players. It's something that maybe it won't happen right away because we've never been good at selling under, Edu, but it needs to start getting better. Like I already said, if you get like what we paid for Ramsdale back, you failed. We built up his profile. He was a relegation goalkeeper. Now he's a Champions League level goalkeeper. He could go to Chelsea. He can go to Newcastle. Getting anything less than 35, 40 million is a travesty, So I am judging him very harshly because ESR should bring in a good amount of money. Ramsdale should bring in a good amount of money. Like I don't expect a lot from Thomas Partey or, players like that. I don't expect anything from those guys. But yeah, I do expect something from like our English players. Yeah, I do. So yeah, I'm judging him. You're right. I am. Blaze says people need to relax. Nowari and Lewis Skelly are not even 18 years old. Some Arsenal fans are obsessed so much with Haaland because they want to push the agenda against Arteta. Saida says there's no harm in giving some of these youngsters a few minutes here and there. I'm not saying throw them into the deep end. Arteta has had multiple chances to experiment this, especially in Europa. Philip says, ha ha, true, I forgot. Arteta's silk tongue. Boy says you can command better money for players that have been playing, even if the aim is to sell ESR, he still needs to be in the shop window showing teams what he can do. It's all connected. The Arsenal perspective says we should make 80, 90 million pound in sales for a number of players who are not playing. This past summer, the whole narrative was that we were going to make about 100 million back in sales. That was the whole narrative the entire summer was we're going to spend 200 million on Kai Havertz, Timber, and Declan Rice, but we would make 100 back. And we didn't. We made like 70. And we're not going to get anything for Tavares. We're not going to get anything for Sambi. I can already tell you that now. We'll be giving them away. So, we've struggled. We've really struggled. Balogun only goes for like 30 million. I know he didn't go to a Premier League side. So it's an area for improvement. Kenneth says we need backup for Saka. Haven't seen any of the fringe players on that side. Jason Johnson says, who do you think we should get in January? What would be your choice? Like I already said, knowing what's going on with Tommy, feeling like he can't be trusted really with his fitness, knowing that Zinchenko is always on the edge of an injury, seeing that Ben White hasn't really, he's also dealing with some injury issues and that we have to really manage Saliba's back injury too. We're an injury away from absolute collapse. We really are back there, so I would go for a center back and I would go get Diamande from Sporting. That's the player that I'd go get, the Arsenal perspective says no, some of us are eager for Haaland because we want the best out of our youth to make it. But if they're not good enough, and that's what matters, if they're good enough and that's what matters, it's also good for our finances to dip into the academy. I just think we have to find the balance between making sure that the players that are actually there that have a contract and all that kind of stuff with the first team get the minutes that they deserve, and also figure out the right times to like give them little bits of minutes. It doesn't have to be one or the other, throwing them into the deep end or never giving them any minutes. There needs to be an in between, and I think that's what we have a hard time figuring out is the in between. You know, Boy says give ESR 10 appearances from now to the end of the season, maybe 6 starts. He will fetch good money. Saksham says Balogun should have been sold for 50 million. The thing about ESR, as I read today, is that he wants to fight first position at Arsenal, but a move to Aston Villa would be something that he'd consider. Aston Villa also have money, so I could see us getting 35, 40 million for him from Aston Villa if we give him a couple starts. So yeah, I feel like ESR's time is ticking away. Like I felt like that at the beginning of the season. I still feel the same. I think he's looked good in the appearances that he's had, but I still feel like this team has moved away from him slightly, and his inability to stay fit really, is the main thing. So, yeah. Hugo says, how much can we get for Eddie? Should be getting at least 40 million for Eddie, but we'll probably get like 25, 30. Boy says Eddie should be 40 million. He's a Premier League proven striker. The Arsenal perspective says, I wonder if a move for Villa would pave the way for Douglas Luiz. I wonder if we'll still go for him in the summer. I mean, the thing that I read was that not everybody at Arsenal was sold on Douglas Luiz. So, that could be an Edu thing, like Edu working with Kia, and maybe Arteta doesn't really like Douglas Luiz that much. We don't know who's not sold on what, but if Arteta's not sold on the player, we won't get him. So we'll see what happens with Douglas Luiz, but also we were never getting him in January. Philip says Timber and Partey are going to come back into the squad and push us into new levels of the business end of the season. That would be great if they could both do that. Let's see. Arsenal perspective says, I wonder if a move to Villa. Oh, yeah, you already said that. And Saida says, I think you're right. ESR will only go for around 30 to 35 million, which is a shame because if he was at Chelsea or Liverpool, they'd manage to get about 40 for him. John P's question says, read an article about the Nuggets, about them buying some superstar once the project was at a certain stage. Do you think Stan will do the same with us and really go for a superstar? We're going to sign a superstar striker this summer. That's what I think. I'm almost like 100% sure. Ornstein has already mentioned it. It's not going to come in January, but it'll definitely come in the summer. And I think we'll throw our hat in the ring for Osimhen. He's the only one that I can think of that really is like a superstar. So we'll see. And if we don't get him, we'll go after a younger kind of guy, I think. But we are going to do it. I feel it. It's the next thing. We also need a midfielder, and they need to stop messing around and get a midfielder, but the striker will definitely come this summer. So, all right, you guys, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. It was about 2 hours, but I'm really enjoying these Sunday evening streams. So these will continue when our games are on Saturday. We'll do them on Sunday. And when our games are on Sunday, we'll do them on Monday night. So just know that that's kind of how things are going to go from here on out, alive. And then, like I said, you guys know how the deal is. Usually there's something that comes out Monday morning, content pre-recorded. And then for Patreon, there's 2 bits of content that come out, one on Monday and one on Friday. So that's kind of the content schedule just laid out. I am going to do a first half rewatch on Patreon tomorrow for the Wolves game. So you guys can look out for that. If you're a patron, if you want to become a patron, patreon.com/SheKnowsArsenal is how you get in. But for the rest of you guys that are just on here, that's fine. I'll see you guys on Monday with some little bit of content. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for, being a part of the stream. I really love hanging out with you guys. There's still 200 of you guys in here. So make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.